we're going to be able to sing along to Judas at Blood and Guts, and I'm going to
sir.
love it, man. And Jericho is still undefeated in this hair versus hair match. I know you were, as a bald guy yourself and the hair guy of the group, I had all confidence Jericho was not going to be losing this match. And nothing against Ortiz. I think he's a great in-ring worker. But honestly, there's not many people on his level. And I know Jericho is a team player, and he's willing to, I'm sure, risk his hair for a story to be told, because he did get a big chunk taken out of it by Ortiz. But there's no way, unless Eddie or someone, which they almost did, get involved to have Jericho lose his hair. I thought what happened in this was fantastic. The nuclear heat, as you said, with the Sammy Guevara stuff. The one thing I want to say before I get your thing, I saw Sammy, or the Fuego's body time. I'm like, that's Sammy. I couldn't text you because I was watching it on my phone. But I wish hair versus hair, you put this big stipulation on it. I want it to be more of a show. Props to Ortiz, as Eddie Kingston said, like, he's sticking to his word, man of his word, and just screaming and doing all that. They had the chair there, and it would have made it that much more like, in your face, ha ha ha, leading up to Blood and Guts. If he got in the chair and Jericho at least got a couple of the dreadlocks snipped off and stuff like that.
I get what you're saying. Make it like feel like this over the top. I mean, because that stipulation isn't something that happens every week, right? So, it's one of those where it's like, play into it, allow it to feel like it's this big moment. I get where you're coming from. I thought Jericho was going to lose, so I'm going to be drinking some Fireball shots at Blood and Guts.
The Wizard.
On behalf of the Wizard. So your boy Crayfish is going to be feeling loose. That's like everybody loves Fireball. I got sick on Fireball and I can't do it. So SPD, you won the bet. No. I'm gonna be taking some Fireball shots in honor of the Wizard. I lost the bet, just like Ortiz. I lost the bet, so I'm gonna own up to it, be a man. But the bigger picture here is, and fresh off the heels of that match, obviously the match itself not a classic, right? There was a lot of antics, a lot of shenanigans that went on in it, and but Jericho did stand out here, and he was actually your top performer of the night.
He was,
and I think that there's a good reason why. I mean, he is riding high momentum wise, and I think this is an example. You mentioned the swerve of Sammy Guevara coming in, and that is one of those things where, like, Sammy won us over again. It's so great to see these guys reunited.
You're right.
Sammy was leaning into the heel stuff anyway with Ty Conti, but it was different, right? Like with Sammy and Ty, it felt like he was getting this like go away heat, as they call it, whereas like people were really not vibing with how over the top those two were with their shenanigans. And unfortunately, Sammy doesn't have the promo skills to turn that negativity, the crowd into more, right? Because that what he and Ty have going, there is something to it, right?
For sure, agreed.
That over the top couple who is super duper in love, and it makes you sick as a fan, and you want to boo them, but you also need that charisma on the mic. And
You're right.
My example of that is, dude, in one line, Jericho had me with like, these guys are willing to have sex at any time. Have sex at any time, right, guys? I mean, just Jericho
leaned into it.
He's so good on the mic, dude. He's such a character. He's so over the top. Mm-hmm. He sold the pay-per-view. I mean, again, now we get to see him at Forbidden Door. And this new I think that Sammy needed a little bit of a shot in the arm, and honestly, Jericho Appreciation Society is on fire. I know that like they're controversial. That
they're sports entertainers.
They're sports entertainers. They kind of zig when the rest of the roster is zagging. But I love what they're doing. I think that they're hilarious. I think that like I look forward to their segments week after week. They're one of the to me the more consistent performers on the roster right now. Lumping Sammy in there, getting him to go back to his old friendship with Jericho and Big Jake, it makes sense, and it protects Sammy again because you have that guy Jericho, the old mainstay who could cut promos like it's his job. The dude is just incredible at it. So it worked for me, man. Tell
You're
me,
right,
like,
man.
tell me about like the continuation of this story leading into Blood and Guts now. The reason why I thought that Jericho was going to lose this match was because I felt it was going to add more heat going into
Yeah.
Blood and Guts.
It's
With
getting
Jericho,
so much. It did have more heat, and
tell
I
me,
think.
why do you win me over like I told like Jericho did with Sammy? Win me
Well,
over.
as my top performer, I
Why
mean,
does this
yeah,
make sense going into Blood and Guts? How does this help build that?
because it's one of those. To me, I feel like it's the classic booking. You have stable wars, and you're trading these victories. Whether it be tag team trios, one on ones, and the Jericho Appreciation Society already won in the Anarchy in the Arena, which was fantastic. So you have Eddie Kingston going, beating Jake Hager, which is good. You got to keep that momentum. Clearly, the crowd is huge in pop
It's
over
true.
Eddie.
It's true.
But at the same time, like, you need to have the good guys, constantly getting, their face rubbed in poop essentially. And then they're ultimately will come out on top of Blood and Guts. So a couple takeaways from this, though, we haven't seen much of the opposing team united. Danielson has been here and there. Mox has kind of been tied up here and there. Even
It's true.
Santana hasn't really been showing face too much here and there. So it's really been Eddie in the forefront. So I don't really see this being they need to have something happen on Dynamite next week where it's a true kind of face-to-face team versus team battle. I know they got this big pay-per-view coming up, Forbidden Door. Mox
Yeah.
is fighting for the world championship interim title. Danielson's has got a match. Now Jericho's got a trios match. So a lot's going on there for that. So I don't know. I feel like we could at this point, which would be very interesting, which I think would be pretty cool, to add Yuta and Sammy to this match. So it's a 6-on-6
Oh
because
my
the Yuta was
goodness.
the kind of the odd man out, and now he's going to be at the Forbidden Door. And then you have recruited Sammy Guevara. Add those two, impressive talents to the Blood and Guts, and
They
you have
would
a
work really well
6-on-6
off of each other
battle,
too.
which would be insane.
I mean, and truthfully, Yuta and Sammy, their
Yeah.
styles would work really well together. That's interesting, SPD.
Have them start the match too.
Blood and Guts is definitely going to be one of those shows where you're like, man, we're going to be so pumped to be there because that's going to be an epic showdown between
Something
those
like
two.
we've
And
never
if
seen.
it's
Yeah.
a continuation again of what we saw with what these two teams can do at Anarchy in the Arena,
Yeah.
we know that Jericho, Sammy, Big Jake, we know those guys are very comfortable with Blood and Guts, and we know that they're gonna come out and deliver. But I'm with you, man. It's gonna be a good one.
What did you think of when Jericho interrupted Moxley, man? This was another swerve, adding to the reason why Jericho was my top performer was because not only the storytelling, but I mean, he was featured a lot on this episode.
Yes,
And
he was.
I did not expect, I mean, Mox was delivering a fire promo. He was, as he always does, saying he's the Forbidden Door best in the world and so forth. And he's been chasing Tanahashi all over the world for years, which this match is going to be bonkers. But then Jericho interrupts. We hear Judas, and then it was quite a surprise and interesting. It throws that curveball in there, and it would have been, especially with the momentum going now, to have Jericho fight for that interim title. I mean, that would have been really interesting stuff if he did get a chance at that and then did win for now. I mean, you talk about you needing a top heel with with MJF kind of, wherever he's at. Now would be a time to capitalize on that with
Jericho is
Jericho.
definitely up there, dude. I mean, the guy is delivering consistently. I find his stuff to be fantastic. I think that
Yeah.
Jericho has been really funny and like he's in great shape again. So there's not a lot of
Agree.
things you can say bad about Jericho right now. I know um, he's not one of these young guys, but I think that like his group is full of these guys who are benefiting from being associated with him. Me personally.
As
Team
the tide
2.0
rises with Jericho, all rise with them. And it
exactly.
is
I
the
mean, think
proof in
about
the
how much
pudding.
we enjoyed Team 2.0 and Daniel Garcia. In a roster that's this loaded, it could have been easy for an act like that to kind of fall by the wayside, right? But that's a group that we loved. We loved their antics. We loved how hilarious they were, and we love what they could do in the ring too. And so being associated with Jericho, a top star, a made man in this company, it has allowed these guys to stay relevant on the weekly show, and that to me makes me happy because these are the types of guys that I feel like sometimes with how loaded this roster has become, these types of niche talents that kind of Dynamite Download is on board with, that we dig those types of acts. Sometimes they can get lost in the shuffle. And so I really do like what their association with JAS is doing right now. Latching onto the promo that you mentioned, definitely another swerve from Jericho, a night of swerves from him. And that's why I can understand why.
Whose house?
Jericho's house. Yeah, Jericho's house. I like it. That's why, I could get why he was your top performer. Bringing out Sammy, and that's a big deal. But interrupting the face-to-face,
that was bold
of the match for Forbidden Door, and for Jericho and his crew to lay these guys out and really send a message to the entire pro wrestling world and sports entertainment world that they're here. They're gonna make an impact. I like it.